7-6, 2-6-16.
The legend definitely lives on. Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It is Thursday, September 1st, and it's still all about the GOAT, Serena Williams, as she played in the second round of the U.S. Open on Wednesday night. We discussed last night's second round, preview Serena's double match today with her sister Venus, and more with James Wright and Reshonda Tate Billingsley. We also hope to be joined by Dawn Montgomery, but we also have Reshonda joining us to talk about something really interesting. Let's bring on Reshonda Tate Billingsley and James Wright Jr. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, James. Hey, Reshonda.
Hey there.
Hi.
Yeah,
what's happening here? Come on now. Is it too early for you this morning? Come on now. Give me some energy.
Reshonda. We're still in that awe. We're still in awe from that open with Serena last night.
We're still cheering.
The hangover. Reshonda, before we get to Serena, though, you got an issue, and it's an issue that we all have. We all salute you on that. You wrote about it. Bring it to the fore for us.
Yeah, it's just the Annie Leibovitz and her inability to capture the beauty of Black women. One of the things she says when she photographs her subjects, she likes to fall in love with the subjects. Well, when it comes to Black women, you just are left wondering, where is the love? And she is I've always loved her since she's been, taking babies pictures, but she might need to stick to babies, because the Vogue photographer recently shared a sneak peek of the magazine's September issue. Mm-hmm. And she has Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. And the images are a hot mess. It's just utterly ridiculous that she cannot like Black women. So I had something to say about it.
Well, is it, at this point, can we say it's intentional?
I don't know her heart. I can't say it's intentional. If you look at the history, and that's what I did, I went back and we looked over some of the previous pictures that she had done, and to see the beauty that she captures in regular photos and the inability to capture that beauty when it comes to Black women is questionable.
Yeah, we saw it with Michelle Obama. We've seen it so many, even with Serena Williams. We're talking about Serena this morning. We've seen her kind of push back on some ways that photographers have captured her in shoots, not on the court, but in photo shoots. So they have complete control of this. Annie Leibovitz has complete control of this. It makes you wonder what's the motivation. Look, I don't want to say it, so I'll throw it out there. James, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I did a little mini course that I created for myself several years ago. Remember when that outstanding movie, The Devil Wears Prada, came out, where Meryl Streep played Anna or Wintour? By the way, that's one of my favorite movies. And I did a little mini course on this industry. And I was very surprised and very upset by the fact that Black women aren't highlighted as much as they should be in these magazines such as Glamour or in Vogue. Black women are very photographic. Their beauty is just intoxicating. And I just think that Annie needs to really take a good look at what she's doing. By the way, that picture of her with Judge Ketanji Jackson, I didn't like it myself. It seemed like she was in a cold place. I just didn't like it. And that expression on her face is just not really serious. It's just sort of like she's mad, about to burst out and cuss somebody out. So I think that is a thing that I agree with Reshonda. That's not good.
Do they not have lights in DC? Like there's no lighting on her. And then I also have an issue with the fact that, you got Lincoln looming in the background with Judge Brown Jackson. And it just, there was just no attention given to the detail. And that picture of Viola, I don't know if you can put that back. Viola looked like she came straight off the slave ship. And
I was just
just
going to say that. Lupita as well. Yep.
and she continues to be hired. And that is, to me, the epitome of white privilege. She can make photographs like these and continue to be hired. Now look at the difference in the two. If maybe she was going for a particular look with Viola's, but the elegance and the glamour of the other photograph, it's just so obvious. And then they look at that with Annie, and it's like, okay, great, let's hire her some more to photograph more Black women. Look at the dullness. And
then this here, right?
Yeah. The dullness of that,
and the Lupita. Yeah, it's unbelievable this is what I'm talking about, Reshonda. Come on, you say slave ship. It looks like she is in her master's quarters right there.
Right.
It's horrible.
And it just really has our skin tone looking exceptionally dull. And that is the problem that I have. And that's not the first time. All of her photographs, we're seeing this. The 72-year-old photographer just has an inability to utilize proper lighting when it comes to our melanated sisters. And that's frustrating.
That picture of the justice standing in the Lincoln Memorial looking up, what is she looking at? What is this about? No, that doesn't work.
Lincoln has more light in the background. Look at that. He has more light.
Yes,
he does. It just an injustice to our beauty, the beauty of Black women. But she'll keep working.
Absolutely, and she'll keep. Yeah, exactly. She'll keep working. But read about it in the Defender. It's a great article. Obviously, Reshonda brings it out, highlights it nicely. And look, it's not about throwing shade. It's about what's right and what's wrong. There's everything wrong with this. It's not just a one-time thing. And I think that's part of Reshonda's point too. It's not just a one-time thing. As she mentioned, even with the judge and Lincoln, all that light on Lincoln, right?
Yes.
And as David Youngblood writes, and it doesn't, the photos, and that's where I'm going, David, it doesn't seem to actually focus on the subjects.
And the other thing about those photos, Stacey and Reshonda, it doesn't show Black women empowered.
Yeah.
I mean, Judge Jackson is a very powerful woman. And we're going to see that as she works as a justice. And yet it doesn't reflect that. Just sitting there, just looking up at the sky, that's not that's crazy.
So we give her a hard pass. She may have an eye for beauty, but when it comes to Black women, she misses the ball.
She misses the mark by a wide margin. Check out Reshonda Tate Billingsley's column in the Defender Network. It is worth checking out, and all of Reshonda's stuff is worth checking out. So go there anyway. How about that?
Thank you.
Now we turn our attention to the GOAT, Serena Williams, the greatest tennis player ever, who in the second round of the U.S. Open last night did not disappoint in front of a loud, enthusiastic crowd that included a fist-pumping Tiger Woods, Spike Lee, Billie Jean King, Dionne Warwick, Venus Williams, and so many others. Serena ripped an ace to capture the first set 7-6 against number 2 ranked Anett Kontaveit. And after dropping the second set 6-2, Serena dominated y'all in the third, and now she moves on to the round of 32. She also plays a doubles match today with Venus, but an incredible night. James, I know you love your sports. Serena did not disappoint. Not only did she not disappoint, in some ways she surprised some.
Yeah, the wonderful thing about Serena, and there are a lot of wonderful things about her, is that her athleticism. And I'm saying that in a positive sense. I'm not saying her athleticism out of a sense of this animalistic way of performing her sport. Her athleticism is very artistic, and she's also extremely extremely strong, and her strength and grace just go together just so well on the tennis court. When you look at her, I mean, this goes even way back when she started. She just didn't show up like Chris Evert and just with a tennis racket and then just hit the ball and run and hit. She did it in a very graceful sort of, I would have to say, theatric sort of way. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning way. I'm saying that in a very, very complimentary way. And she is a great athlete.
And I
love a question. She's one of the. Go ahead, Reshonda.
Yeah, I was just saying, I love seeing all the GOATs coming out to see her. There was a plethora of talent, and it's a testament to how great of an athlete she is. From Tiger Woods rooting her on in the stands, you had Stephen Curry. You just had all of these people that were really, really in her corner, and she deserved it. It's a way for her to really go out on top if she goes out.
Yeah, Reshonda, I know you gotta leave us this morning a little early, but we appreciate you dropping in. And again, check out Reshonda at the Defender Network in Houston. It's a great story, and as I said, all of her stuff is good. So check her out. Thanks, Reshonda, for jumping in this morning.
Thanks for letting me drop in. All right, bye-bye.
Absolutely, James. You know, it's interesting because the U.S. Open is the site of so many fantastic moments, great moments, if you will. If you recall, Jimmy Connors made his last great run at the U.S. Open, almost under the same settings as Serena Williams. We knew it was the end for Jimmy Connors. This was back in the 1980s, and he had that run there in which it galvanized folks in the sport. But in Serena's case, it's not only galvanizing folks in tennis, but in every sport and every walk of life, pretty much.
You're absolutely right, Stacey. When Jimmy Connors was playing, tennis was pretty much a white male sport. Oh, yeah, you did have white females such as Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, and Martina Navratilova, but it was basically a white male sport. The Williams sisters came in and they integrated it. And they, not only that, they expanded it in terms of a lot of African-American girls looking at that sport in terms of recreation and college scholarships. And you're absolutely right with that. And it's important to understand that she, and a lot of people don't talk about this, Stacey, but Serena and Venus opened the door for Black female athletes to consider another sport. They were not just restricted to basketball and volleyball and cheerleading, if you want to go that way, but they could now look at tennis as a means of not only recreation, but possibly college scholarships.
Well, I think you're right, and certainly in the sense the WNBA, for instance, you talk about basketball, they were pretty much in its just beginning, right? Around that time, they had only had maybe a couple of years under its belt. When Serena and Venus came into the sport.
Right.
But James, to have such a following as Serena, to develop that, think about where she came from. And I know that story is told many times over. You know, she came from Compton. They came from Compton. They came from, pretty much nothing and became these mega stars. And in Serena's case, for sure, a mega star. But there are so many obstacles, even as a Black woman star, right?
Yes.
Talk about some of those obstacles, even after she had already long proven herself on the court. What were some of the other obstacles Serena has had to overcome?
Well, one obstacle she had to overcome is the fact that in terms of sponsors, at the beginning of her career, she had great difficulty getting sponsors from many of the leading sports companies. I'm talking about Nike. I'm talking about Under Armour wasn't around at that time, but Nike, but Reebok. They were very reluctant in order to invest money into a Black female athlete in a sport like tennis because they didn't think it would give them returns. Of course, they turned out to be wrong. The other thing is that tennis is such an expensive sport. In order to participate in. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money in order to do that. And because they didn't have it at that particular time, they had to kind of do other things in order to make sure that they were able to travel to the tournaments. A friend of mine by the name of Greer had the opportunity to interview Cora Masters-Berry, who was very close to Serena Williams, well, the Williams sisters, and talked about that they didn't have a lot of money at one time because it's just an expensive sport. Those were the things. And then you have to deal with the institutional racism, Stacey, you know, being a Black woman in a predominantly white sport, even among females, that kind of cattiness, the pettiness among the line judges and things like that. But she, both of them overcame and really lifted up women's tennis.
You know, it's interesting because we talk about the GOAT and we hear about the GOAT all the time, greatest of all time.
Yes.
And we know that really began. Muhammad Ali was so famous for boasting being the greatest of all time. And there was some talk, well, you know, there was Joe Louis may have been greater or Rocky Marciano may have been greater. And in basketball, we hear the talk, Michael Jordan, the greatest. Some people say, no, LeBron is the greatest. Some people say Kobe is the greatest. And we can go to baseball and people say, you know, Babe Ruth was the greatest. I say Willie Mays, hands down, was the greatest of all time in baseball. But the point I'm getting at is this. When you say Serena Williams was the greatest of all time in tennis, there's no argument. There's no counterpoint. Even in golf, Tiger, some say Jack Nicklaus, I should say, was the greatest. There's no argument when it comes to Serena Williams. And I think that speaks volumes. And also, James, let's talk about how, they changed the game, the power behind her swing. We had not, her serves, I should say, we had not seen that before. I mean, she was serving 120 miles per hour in at the top of her game. We had not seen that before.
Yes, you're absolutely right in terms of that. Her serve was very, very powerful, and that's what made it so unique because they hadn't seen anything like that. You talked about something very interesting, Stacey, about the GOAT.
She whipped that out last night when she got that ace. She whipped that power back when she got that ace. But go ahead, James.
And she's still doing it. I mean, she did it in the 90s, and now we're in the 2020s, and she's still doing it. That just shows her great athleticism and strength. And you talked about the greatest athlete of all time. And you know this, Stacey, there's been debate in social media about whether Serena Williams is the greatest athlete of all time. Of course, in women's tennis, that's already a given. And I would have to go along with that. A lot of fellas are going to disagree with me on this because when you talk to the fellas and the fellas say, well, you know, you had, as you mentioned, Michael Jordan, you had Bill Russell, you had all of these others that you mentioned. But you got to remember that with the exception of Muhammad Ali, those were team sports. So Michael Jordan, as great as he was, he could not have gotten those titles without Scottie Pippen and some of those other folks. Bill Russell, as great as he was,
indeed,
could not have gotten those titles without a supporting cast. Serena, for the most part, has gotten what she's gotten on her own performance, not dependent on anybody else. That is what makes her the greatest athlete of all time, male or female.
Well said, James Jr. Claire Perry says, actually on ESPN a couple of years ago, she was referred to as the greatest athlete of the decade, but she is the greatest of all time. And it is a good point that you made, James, because team sports, you're right. I've said many a times, I've had this argument. I got a brother who loves Michael Jordan. I've had that argument many times. Without Scottie Pippen or Dennis Rodman, there's no championship. And you're absolutely right. Serena gets on that court, much like Tiger on the golf course. It's you and you alone pretty much. Well, you have the caddy in golf, right, who can tell you some things. The wind is blowing that way, or you might want to use this club or that club. But Serena, any tennis player, they're there by themselves. She also inspired people like Coco Gauff, and Coco is somebody you got to look out, as the future comes into focus. Another exciting young Black player. And of course, there's Naomi Osaka, who actually lost in the first round. But here's the reverence for Serena Williams. Naomi lost in the first round, but guess where she was? Guess where she has been the rest of the tournament? Sitting in the stands watching Serena Williams. And so that impact is indisputable that she's had. But also, James, let's talk about, we mentioned this the other day, the cat suit, but not just the cat suit, but just how she's changed even the appearance of tennis. I mean, nobody came out looking like that before. It was all just perfunctory, a little skirt or skirt or whatever, and that's that.
You're absolutely right.
The fashion statement.
Yes, if you look back in history, there's Mrs. Barry there. There's Cora Masters Barry. Cora Masters Barry is the widow of Marion Barry, four-term mayor here in D.C., and she has this great mayor for life. I'm telling you. And Mrs. Barry was key in creating the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center in Ward 8. More on that later. But the thing is, if you remember this, Stacey, before Serena and Venus actually started, the tennis uniform was actually with the women just a white. It was just basically a white dress, I guess. It was just white. It was always white, always white. But they changed that.
Basic.
Yes. Even with this clip of Althea Gibson, it was just white, and that's just what it was. And now she changed it, and she made it a fashion statement. It is fashionable to dress well in terms of a tennis match, and that should be given credit to them in order to do among the many things that they've done.
Question. They deserve all the credit. Absolutely. They bought style. And it was so sensible. Sometimes the most sensible things to some are not that obvious, right? Because as you well pointed out, it was just this dull white uniform. Pretty much, I call it a uniform that they all wore. And it's not a knock against the women, but then Serena and Venus comes along, and we're not doing that. This is how we do it. They pulled out the Montel Jordan. This is how we do it. Yes. The beads, from the head to the toe. They would not, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this our way.
Right. And another thing about it,
certainly they did.
Yeah, and the thing about it is also the Serena, the Williams sisters focused on tennis. For example, you mentioned Billie Jean King was there. Billie Jean King was a great tennis player. She also was a great activist in terms of women's sports, as well as, and during her time of playing, the Equal Rights Amendment, the abortion decision. She was an activist, and nothing wrong with that. But one of the things I liked about it in terms of from a sports point of view is that the Williams sisters stuck with their craft and they stuck with their sports. Of course, they had very progressive views politically, but they stuck with sports and they stuck with their craft.
Yeah, absolutely. They have revolutionized the sport. They've changed it forever. They've left their mark. You can say, as much as we talk about Serena being the GOAT, which she is, you don't want to leave Venus out of the conversation either, because she was right there with her sister, changing tennis, and they changed it. It's not going back to that dull, let's do the soft serve type thing. Let's just wear the dull white. It's not going back.
No, it's not going to go back. And I'm excited about the Osaka young lady and the changes that she's going to make. Not only did tennis expand in terms of Black communities because of Serena and Venus, many Caribbean and African nations also are recognizing tennis for what it is. And Ms. Osaka is going to do the same in terms of the Asian countries. So they have been a boon for
Yeah, look how
tennis.
proud. Did you see that picture of how proud Tiger Woods is standing there?
Yes.
Like that's his sister or something. And it is in some ways his sister. But you know what, James, also and I cut you off big time,
No,
but I
that's
know
fine.
you'll forgive me because you're that type of guy. But I wanted to mention too, earlier in writing, Claudette Perry mentioned when I asked about overcoming things, she mentioned racism, and it calls to mind the various post-game, post-match interviews that Serena had, and recently they've been showing many of them. And one, when she was much younger, she was asked a question about drug use, questions that Martina didn't get,
Right.
Chris Everett didn't get, Billie Jean King didn't get. And I watched her as she took the question in, crowded press room, took the question in, looked at that reporter, and then she said, "Can you repeat that question again and say it out loud and let everyone know that you're asking me about drug use? Say it louder." And I was so amazed that she sat back and just was able to she called out, put her on the spot, because it was a sly way in which this reporter was asking the question. And then another reporter told her, had the audacity to tell her, "Did you get any rest at all before the match? Because you look tired. I know you played and, and Serena was like, "You want to try doing this for 4 hours and then and still look fresh?" The response is calling out the stupidity, calling out the racism in those ways. I thought it was another way, and I think is another way that they've left their mark. Serena, will be attacked. Anybody Black will, you're succeeding. Tiger got it. Tiger got it a lot. I was at the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame induction ceremony earlier this year when Tiger was inducted to the Hall of Fame. And finally, he never talked about it until then. And I still encourage people to go back and look at Tiger's Hall of Fame induction from this past March. And he really opened up, even with tears streaming down, talking about the racism and the different questions he faced from reporters. The journalists sometimes were worse, many times I should say, were worse than those people in the sport. I think about Jackie Robinson and how, he had to overcome it within the game itself with even some of his own teammates, but none more so than the journalist, James.
Yes. Well, I can give you two quick stories. And in the 1980s, with the then Washington Redskins, someone asked Doug Williams, who became the first Black quarterback to lead a team to the Super Bowl victory, what's it like to be a Black quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then
what's it like to be a Black quarterback?
Yeah, and then his teammate Dexter Manley a year before, a sports writer asked him, "Well, what is it like to be what is it like to be a tree?" I mean, something along those lines, and having nothing to do with the sport, having nothing to do with athleticism, having nothing to do with the mind in order to be a great athlete. Just something just really, really silly. And this still goes on, Stacy, because a lot of these guys, and I'll say it's guys, they don't know how to deal with African-American athletes. And they believe those silly, stupid stereotypes. And then they take that to their pen and to those press conferences.
Well, and the thing about it is that you have these, there's that jealousy factor there that, oh gosh, this Black person is doing all of this and they're making all of this money and they're famous. There's still that, especially you think about when Serena was coming up, when Tiger was coming up in the sport, you still had that old boy network thing and the good old boys, and they hated that, they resented it. And so the least little thing, and that, Tiger had that brief scandal there, but he overcame that as well. Serena and Venus scandal free. Um,
Yes,
they
that's
look for
important.
little things and being and so right. So I'm pointing out too that so the fact that they were scandal free tells you the type of life they have led, because you best believe that these journalists were looking under every rock to find something against them, every rock.
Yes.
And I think you said it. What really helped them was the fact that they were dedicated to their sport. They were dedicated to being great, and nobody or nothing was going to stop them. And so we sit here today on September 1st, 2022, knowing that Serena Williams is simply, as Tina Turner said, the best. And it would be, I hear the song ringing in my head, but Facebook and YouTube and all, they're not going to let us play that. They say, no, y'all can't do that. Y'all don't own the rights, so you can't play it. So anyway, as we say that, imagine hearing Tina Turner, simply the best, as we think about and talk about Serena Williams. Keep watching. David Youngblood, I'll close on this point because I think this really hits the point a lot. We talk about Tiger Woods. We talk about Serena Williams. Tennis and golf, David writes, are no longer the sports of country clubs. And that's because of Tiger Woods and Serena Williams. Congratulations to Serena, and keep winning. And so we can keep watching, because if you lose, girl, ain't no reason to watch. But anyway, thanks for no, we're going to keep watching. Today she's playing with her sister. That should be special too. If she's truly not going to play anymore after this Open, watching her and Venus together on that court should be something special. Thanks for watching. Let it be known, and have a great day. But come back tomorrow and join us as we talk more about the greatest of all time. Have a great day, everybody.